Hi, I'm Mike Harrison, M. John Harrison, and this is my new book, The End of Everything. The End of Everything is a collision between a seaside novel, a road movie, and a disaster set on a curiously wrenched version of the Kent coast. No one knows what's happened to the world as they remember it, but everyone has a theory. Nothing is dependable, and we seem to have misplaced an entire continent. Marnie and her nephew Philip make their way in these circumstances separately up the coast towards London through layer upon layer of hallucination. I'm here in Waterstones, Piccadilly, to introduce you to some books that have really meant something to me, one way or another, across my lifetime. And the first one is The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. By the early 1920s, the world had shown itself to be a perpetual disaster, political, religious, and moral. In an act of psychic journalism, less poetry than psychic journalism, Eliot brought the century up to date with itself, reflected at odd angles by this collection of glorious, glittering shards from a broken mirror. My next pick is The Drought by J.G. Ballard, possibly the greatest writer of the last century. At the outset of this catastrophe, the sea, coated with a scum of industrial polymers, has ceased to evaporate. No more rain will fall. The world we used to know has fallen apart. J.G. Ballard inherited T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, the way you might inherit an uncle's collection of old scientific instruments. And then he hammered some of them into a homemade radio telescope via which he could stare balefully at the inner spaces of the 1950s and 1960s. The Drought was a lethal blow to the cosy fictional catastrophes presented by writers like John Wyndham, in which the disaster was healed, the Fisher King was cured, and the wasteland was put back on track by starting an allotment. Okay, my third choice, which brings us right up to date and continues the disaster theme and the themes of the wasteland, is Anne DeMarcan's elevated zombie disaster. It lasts forever, and then it's over. Fictional apocalypses always track closely the times in which they're written. Here, the catastrophe gives Genevieve, the zombie, a room and a voice of her own, reducing the human race to a litter of corpses sprawled in deck chairs in the suburbs. Genevieve reflects on the life before she became undead, concluding that she was in fact already a zombie. And to quote, a ravenous eater of a world that was already the last of its kind. And then she finishes, would I eat a baby? Yes, I would eat a baby. And then finally making steady eye contact with you, the reader, would I eat you? It's a genius book, this.